We're going to resume our Ross Board of Education meeting to the regular session. It's Thursday, October 20th, 2022, Ross Board of Education regular meeting. If everyone please could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we go, Dr. Kupka, can we review the agenda?
Yes, sir. Tonight on the agenda, there's some personnel schedules for your approval. We have some supplementals for the winter season. There's a new non-certified subrate. There are some advanced degree submissions from teachers for a move up on the pay scale. There's a CAST summary report. Looks like there's some donations, and finally a Butler County ESC contract for special ed. So those are some of the highlights tonight.
Okay, we will not have a legislative report, but we will have a brief Butler Tech report as well. We did, she said we just need to just come back into meeting. Yep, it's all right. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, which is the review, approval, and correction of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve minutes from September 15th, 2022 and October 10th, 2022? Can we get a first, please? Mr. Chanel, can we get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes. Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes. We have some public participation. Mr. Castaner, you got it in order there?
We do.
You'll bring them down? Got 4 of them? Okay, we will start. Awesome. So we will start with Carter Pate. Carter, if you could please come up to the front, and while you're on your way up, we'll limit the maximum to 3 minutes. I've already said who you are, so if you don't mind, are we going to do all of them at the same time? Okay, yeah. So we got Carter, Ella Black? No? Nope, different group, okay.
Different group.
So who, you guys just tell me who you are, that way I can mark you off.
All right, I'm Carter. I'm Kenneth Rakes. And I'm Tony Greger.
Okay? Go ahead, floor is yours, guys.
All right, so today we came here to talk about getting the day after Halloween off school.
Is the mic on?
Hello.
Okay, there you go. Do you mind starting again, just doing your names? I'm sorry. Since the mic was off.
My name is Carter Pate, and I'm here with Tommy Kreger and Kenneth Rakes.
Okay, thank you.
Today we're talking about getting the day after Halloween off school, and some of our major reasons for this day is because there's a high absence rate on this day, and there's also, this is caused by a lack of sleep that causes these students not to want to come these days, and this lack of sleep can lead to road dangers, and also the students that do come on this day can be inactive listeners and learners. And we looked at studies, and one shown in Los Angeles showed that the day after Halloween is the second highest count of absent rates in the entire city, and also a study done by Apple showed that nationwide 2,500 schools that the day after Halloween was the highest absent rate day. And then the CDC states that children ages 13 to 18 need roughly 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and this is hard enough to get on a normal school day. And on a day such as the day after Halloween, it's nearly impossible to do if students are out late, like with their families and friends. And then this will just lead to lethargic and inattentive students. And teachers have took notice to this at school, and we did multiple interviews for teachers, and one of them to note is Mrs. Beener, the health teacher at Ross High School. I asked her, do you think a lot of students will be absent the day after Halloween because they're too tired to come to school? And her response was, I quote, I think that it'll be possible that many people may skip. So yes, you should get the day after Halloween off. And this leads into the part about the road dangers that can occur on this day. Tired students who have stayed up late on Halloween who are driving to school may be tired and not focused on the road, which can cause dangers for the student's body. And we obviously would not want the student's safety to be put in danger on this day. And we also did a lot of surveys throughout the entire, the survey was given to the entire student body, and Kenneth will explain more about that.
So on Monday, we posted a survey to the student body, and by 2 p.m. Today, it had 187 responses. Some of the questions included, do you think we should get the day after Halloween off school? How many hours sleep do you typically get on the night of Halloween? Are you or someone you know planning on not attending the day after Halloween? And do you feel safe on the roads? And would you be willing to exchange a day to get the day after Halloween off? The response to these questions, the first question showed an overtaking yes. 94% of students voted yes, they would want the day after Halloween off. And then for the second question, hours of sleep. Over 80% of the students said that they got lower than 5 hours of sleep on the night of Halloween, which is way below average of 8 to 10 hours that the CDC recommends for students to have the proper amount of sleep. This can lead to tiredness in class, irritability, many things that could put students behind, as well as slowed reaction times on the road because of their tiredness, which could lead to accidents that we do not want to jeopardize the student bodies. Also, 70% of students said that they know someone or they themselves are skipping school on the day after Halloween, which could lead to high absent rates that we don't want because many students can fall behind. Additionally, when we asked if they felt safe on the roads, 83.4% of the student body said no, they don't feel safe on the roads the day after Halloween. And this could be due to many factors, including the evening before festivities, what they do, how late they stay up, and their lack of alertness on the roads because of how late they stayed up and their tiredness. And 64.7, over half of the student body said they would be willing to exchange a day that we have off for various reasons to get this day after Halloween off. And we also made a petition, and for this I'll be passing it on to Tommy Krager.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. We also put out a petition roughly 4 weeks ago asking our peers if they would like the day after Halloween off. And to this date, we have accumulated over 400 signatures on the petition, where they could also add feedback and comments, including some Dylan Pence, who stated the kids who decide to come will be grumpy, irritable, and unproductive, and Ledger Angel. And I think that we should get the next day off Halloween because most of us are late and doing things the next day that might make us tired. And so if you guys scan that QR code on your paper, it could take you to our site and show you our signatures and comments our fellow peers left. And so to wrap it all up, we're asking if we could get the day after Halloween off of school this year, or if that's not possible, maybe a couple hour delay. And also get this maybe considered in the future for future schedules. Thank you for your time.
Hold on, I think we might have some questions for you. I'll start if you guys don't mind. Kenneth, you talked a lot about the stats on the far left, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the response. I'm really glad you asked the very last question, because that's the one that's probably the most realistic question, is what day are you gonna trade for that day? You don't have to answer it, but that's a great question. I'm glad you guys asked that because of the way the calendar works. So those are great questions you guys asked, is what my point I'm trying to make. And then the next thing is, do you guys understand how the calendar works? Go ahead, Mr. Payton.
So we understand that the schedule might be set in stone for this current year, and it might be difficult to switch around the days. So that's why we're kind of considering the idea of the hourly delay. But I also don't know if that's completely possible. So our main idea was just for later years, maybe next year and the years to come, to have those days off, because I know it might not be possible this year.
Right.
But we also remember last year how we got the day after the Super Bowl off, and we're considering if that is possible again for this school year.
The main thing is that you understand how the calendar works, and there's a lot that goes into that. And then ultimately, it gets to the Board of Education. But the part that comes in before us is a lot of things. And one of the things Dr. Kunkel said, that initiative that maybe I think him and Jake Richards has with some students. Can you go ahead and elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, let me first of all say you guys did a great job. So I know it's hard to get up in front of board members and superintendents and admin and do a presentation. So great job on the presentation. I like this. One page, well done. So kudos to you guys. Unfortunately, we will have school the day after Halloween, unless there's a foot of snow. But we'll see how that plays out.
If there's
But
like barely a little bit
Right.
of snow.
I was a junior in high school.
it could. You never know.
Snow. Yeah. On
So-
Halloween.
My suggestion is Mr. Richards is in the process of developing calendars for the following school year. So if you have ideas, now's the time to email Mr. Richards. All ideas are great at this point, but there's, we have to look at so many calendar days, academic days. But again, good job, but
Yep.
we probably will have school the day after Thanksgiving this
And
year.
what this has brought up and just triggered me, and I've vocally have said this about the calendar. I don't care about the calendar. I don't work the calendar. Now, that's not the opinion of others, but I'm just gonna say, I don't care about it because I don't work it. But this has triggered the fact that you guys live it. The teachers and staff work it. So ultimately, I think there should be a voice that the students have in some of these days, because that last question, Kenneth, is the big one. What do you want to trade off? Do you want to be off the day before Thanksgiving? Do you want to be, those are things you have to look at, because you have a certain amount of days you have to get in, but.
So we want to make sure that your voices are heard.
Yes.
Mr. Richards, do you want to briefly talk about the student leadership concept that we're trying to?
You guys have started a little thing here.
I
It's
said
good.
briefly.
Briefly. So, gentlemen, thank you for that. Obviously, we value student voice, and one of my goals in my new position here is to not only hear what you're saying, but also to amplify that voice. We are here as teachers, as administrators, as community members to serve you and your education. I will tell you that you can email me from now until October 31st, and I am 90% guaranteeing you're coming to school on November 1st on time. I'm sorry. I think I'm safe in saying that. Okay, unless there's the snow calamity. But we are in the process of formulating a district-wide leadership collaborative, okay, in which we're going to have representatives from all of our school buildings, K through 12, and we are going to use that as a way to not only hear your voice, but also to amplify your voice, and to give you the education that you deserve, the opportunities that you need to grow. And now I can't promise you that that's going to guarantee the day off of or day after Halloween off, but it will be a forum that our students can speak in, and we will listen.
Good job, guys.
Guys, do you have anything else before they go? Mr. Chanel?
Nice job, guys.
I was just wondering if we could take this to our jobs and see what we can get out of it. We are going to be awake with you, waiting for you to get home. So I wonder, you could send this to the hospital for me.
Mrs. Webb?
No, I just want to reiterate. I mean, great job on this. I guess I was expecting maybe a presentation with just you speaking, but the visual's great, the QR code is great, the questions were great. I could tell you put a lot of thought into it. And I don't know when this went out. Did you say today?
The survey went out on Monday.
Okay, because that's why my daughter was talking to me about the day after Halloween yesterday at dinner. So that's where it came from. Okay,
Now,
that's where it came from.
can you disclose to Mr. Martin on all these people that say they're going to skip, or? I'm just kidding. Guys, thank you. You
Yeah,
guys
nice
have
job.
anything
Nice
else?
job, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you so much. Yep. Great job. Okay, we have another public participation. It's two people, Ella Black and Ava Dunn. If you guys could come on up, and is the mic on, Jake? Just introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Okay, no worries.
All right, my name's Ella Black. This is Ava Dunn. We're doing a project for our CCP Gov class about an issue that we thought was important to cover. So we would just like to raise awareness for some shared concerns that we have about the school parking lot.
This includes things like traffic, accidents, and overall busyness. We conducted research to help us analyze how large of an issue this is.
For our research, we interviewed Mr. Martin and Officer Kroc. We created a survey for students to fill out and observe the parking lot after school. In our poll, 44 students responded. Out of the 44 replies, 5 students said that they have been in an accident at school, and 4 students said that when there was, when they were in an accident, no adult aid was there to help them.
In addition to this, we interviewed Mr. Martin on his thoughts on this issue. He stated that the school has put in a more advanced camera system in the parking lot in case of accidents, and that they assign each department of teachers a week to oversee the parking lot. Another solution to help this issue that the school has already done is being more aggressive with taking parking passes from students because of driving recklessly in the parking lot. Additionally, we think good solutions are adding signs that more clearly state traffic directions and rules that will be located on the ends of the rows of the parking lot. A traffic control person like the school resource officers could stand at one of the main exits to get out of school and direct the cars which way to go to help with traffic and to make sure there will be no accidents leaving the campus.
Some observations that we gathered when we watched the parking lot were the lanes the cars drive in got backed up when people were trying to exit the school, students getting picked up in the student parking lot when they should be getting picked up in the back of the school, and unorganized flow of traffic. Also, there are teachers that are assigned the duty of standing and watching the parking lot after school. We feel as though they could be doing more effective work, like writing down students' license plate numbers if they are speeding and giving warnings rather than just standing there and overseeing. In conclusion, these are some examples of why we feel this is an important issue.
Thank you for your time. We ask that you look into this problem for the safety of those students at Ross High School.
Thank you. Ella and Ava, thank you so much for coming in. We have a safety committee, which is made up of, it's led by Mr. Castater, but also board member Hayes is on that committee. I tried to start writing down some of the stuff you said, but I didn't do a very good job. So if you don't mind sending an email to Steve Castater, and you can copy Heather Hayes, who's a school board member. Both of them are on the website with those suggestions. And you guys meet quarterly?
We do.
Quarterly?
Yep.
And it sounded like a lot of the things that you got, the feedback would be really good for that group. So Steve, do you want to elaborate a little bit more? Just an email is all you need?
We can add that to the agenda. We just had a meeting a couple weeks ago. I think we're scheduled the first week in December for our next quarterly meeting.
Yeah, because as you guys know, both of you, Ella and Ava, it gets worse as the school year goes on because more people get their license. And usually it's the young pups to get it. And they may need some guidance on some of this stuff, but.
The fire chief are there.
Yeah,
so,
if you don't mind, who all comes to the safety meeting?
So Ross Township Police Chief Roberts is on there, the fire chief, also all of our SRO, the district SRO and our SSOs are all on the committee, along with Mr. Rettinger as the administrative rep this year. So it's a pretty good group.
Now, Steve, are you the one personally that changed the route for the homecoming?
I did
I'm
not.
kidding, by the way. We got a lot of feedback on that, guys. But Dr. Kunkel, do you have anything for
Guys,
these guys?
great job. Can we have your note? Can I have your notes so we can? Perfect. That's again, good job. The student leadership, it's a great opportunity to have more voice there, but we'll take this under consideration and go to the safety committee. So, great job.
Mr. Chanel, do you have anything?
Nope, again, nice job.
You already did? Yep.
No, nice job, and I appreciate that you not only, addressed some concerns, but you also were solution-facing, so nice job.
Yes. The camera system is new, and it's very, 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 very good. I do know that, so that's something we definitely needed. Do you guys have anything else for the board? Okay, thank you so much for coming in. Do you mind passing these down, Steve? Okay, we'll move on to superintendent reports and recommendations. Dr. Kunkel?
Yes, sir. I'd like to block the first items. The bottom one, advanced degree submission, will be a separate vote. So the first block, obviously Schedule C, D, and E, the revised subrates, tuition reimbursement, and then the advanced degree submission for 2022. The last item there will be a separate vote. So I'd like to block the first items under that section.
Okay, so the first item is blocked. Can we get a first motion for that, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel? Can we get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes? Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yeah, which, we didn't
You're
block.
good, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes. Okay, now we will, can we have a motion for the last one? correct?
Yes, this is advanced degree submission for one teacher, again, for your approval.
Yep, so underneath Superintendent Reports and Recommendation, Advanced Degree Submission 2022, the separate vote. Can we get a first for that, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Webb? Mrs. Logan, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
I have to abstain.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to Treasurer's Reports and Recommendations. The floor is yours, Mrs. Logan.
Thank you. Several items on the agenda tonight. Things that look familiar are going to be the investments report, the treasurer's report. The donations tonight, we do have two donations. One, $500 anonymous donation to the Amanda Robertson Scholarship Fund, and then over $1,600 from Laura Reese, Coldwell Banker, for Apple Track pads at Morgan. Then we have a approval for a few invoices. So then and now basically says that we had the money then when we purchased, and now we're asking to approve the payment of the invoice because the purchase order was dated after the invoice came in. And so we have two of those. One is to Henry Schein, S-C-H-E-I-N, I'm probably butchering that name, for athletic supplies for $4,246.01, and Nelson Stark for $24,076.14. And this was actually an emergency situation. We had a sinkhole, storm line, and we had to get the work done. So there were some timing issues with that. And then two additional things, an MOU with the Butler County Educational Service Center, as well as virtual or visual impaired service agreement, both of those with the ESC.
Okay.
And I would ask for a block for A through F approval.
Can we have a first under Treasurer's Reports and Recommendation? Can we have a first motion to block A through F, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Logan, could you call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned earlier, we do not have a legislative report this month. Everybody is out campaigning, so there's not a whole lot going on legislative-wise. We do have a brief Butler Tech report, three things. Butler Tech is exploring with the state of Ohio of trying to see if high school students can take adult ed classes similar to like doing CCP and get the funding for that. So Butler Tech is really campaigning hard with legislation to see if that can happen. Obviously not this year, but possibly next year. As many of you guys know, Butler Tech's classes fill up. Specifically, welding is one of them, and there is welding in adult ed, so that would be a situation where they could go and take welding and possibly get it paid for through the state instead of the students having to pay for it. The second thing is the Natural Science Center that Butler Tech is just finished building on the Monroe campus. The ribbon cutting is going to be October 27th, but students will fill that building on the 24th. It's right off the highway of 63 to the right there. It's a really, really, really neat building. So that is going to be open to the students on the 24th. And then the last thing from Butler Tech that is Ross related is Jeff Korb is retiring from Butler Tech, and Jeff is a teacher here at Ross High School for many, many years in FFA, and this is his last school year. So if you see him, say hi to him, congratulate him. Jeff's been a staple in our district for many, many years, so great person, great person. That's all we have for Butler Tech Report. I did pass out the Student Success newsletter. That's in front of you guys as well. That was passed out at our meeting this week. So any questions Butler Tech-wise? Nope. So we'll go around the table. Board comments. We'll start with Mrs. Webb.
I just want to thank all the students that presented this evening, and thank you all for being here and attending our board meetings and asking the questions that you're asking. I think it's really helpful to have this dialogue as we get into next month, so thanks.
Mr. Schnell?
Nothing additional, thanks.
Mrs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hayes?
Look myself in the
Sorry, I
eye.
didn't mean to.
I just wanted to say thank you for, I feel like sometimes people learn different, and I appreciate the different graphs and then the more like layman terms. So when we hear it, we kind of know the background of things, but for someone to hear what 4 million cuts would look like on paper and what that would do, I really appreciate the time that you did for that for tonight's meeting. It was very beneficial.
Thank you, Mrs. Hayes. A couple things. We're coming out of the fall season. Just want to congratulate a lot of the sports teams, also the band, the success they had. I do want to give a shout out to Mrs. Bolin, who's our tennis coach. 3 years in a row, she has been SWAC Coach of the Year. Now, there's some other SWAC Coaches of the Year, but specifically I wanted to give a shout out to her because she's my daughter's teacher as well. So and she thinks she walks on water. So the tennis team has had a lot of success along with a few of the other sports teams. The band had a really successful fall, gearing up for show choir as well. So a lot of our extracurriculars are ramping up and going. So best of luck to the winter as they come along. We did talk a lot about the levy in our work session, and just want to reiterate to the community that if you have any specific questions, please reach out to the upper administration for those questions, and we'll do the best we can to answer those as well. So with that being said, if I could have a motion to end today's meeting, Thursday, October 20th, 22. Can we have a first to end the meeting, please?
Motion.
Mr. Schnell, can we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.